fantastic group of people here. The Miranda Team Home Inspectors, an amazing inspection company. Going to learn a lot about two very important subjects today. We're going to talk about termites and radon. Before we start the show, make sure to always watch us live on YouTube. Go to our Team Powerhouse Real Estate, hit subscribe, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, go to Spotify, listen to us on the ride, go to Google Podcasts, go to, help me out, Eric.
Twitch, Anchor,
LinkedIn, Twitter.
Did you say the new one that we hit 1,000 on?
TikTok Live. Thank you so much, Eric. Make sure to go to TikTok. Go to Team Powerhouse Real Estate and watch us live on TikTok every week, guys. Not to mention, go to our TikTok, watch all the things happening about real estate, fun videos, fun facts. And don't forget to watch us on Monday nights for our trivia questions, where you guys can win a free something special. Maybe it'll be a swag, maybe it's a gift card. You're not going to miss it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. It's Tuesday. We have Marco Miranda and Melanie Miranda, the Miranda Team Home Inspection Company, a phenomenal group of people who are going to take care of you, educate you about your home and what the process of buying a home is, and also education on owning a home. So thank you guys so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you for thanks for
That's
having
okay.
us.
Dave forgot to mention that Eric's here too.
Oh.
Go ahead,
The
Dave.
most important part of the show.
No. Go ahead. Ask
Eric
the
Vasquez,
questions.
my right-hand man, every week, as you know. You guys love Eric. I
When
love
he's
Eric.
actually here, but go
And
ahead.
he's actually here. My
And man,
apologies.
there you go.
So let's first talk about something that is very an important conversation. I recently ran into a situation with a home. In my 17 years, never had this happen before, where a home was riddled in termites. You know, you buy a house and you don't know what you don't know until it happens. So let's talk about termites. What are termites?
Well, first of all, that's the amazing thing that I love about real estate is you can do it for all these years and there's always going to be something new. I love it. You know, termites are bad things for real estate because bad bugs because they do cause a lot of damage. They a lot of people never check for them, so it's kind of like when you get to buy the house, it's awful because you have all this termite damage. So they do a lot of damage to the house. That's what termites are.
What I've learned just recently is they can be in your home doing damage and you have no idea about this until you go to sell your house and then home inspection happens. Where do actually termites live? Like, where's their home base? Do they start in your house? Where's their home base before they get there?
So termites live on the ground, right? They're subterranean termites, so they go on the ground and then they come to your house and feed off your house, and then they go back to the ground. So the house, that's their plate on the table. They, that's where they eat, and then they bring it back to their colony, and they can put a lot of damage because they do a lot of work. You know?
So when they're, let's say, in the ground, so and I'm a very visual person. Here's the house. Is the termites, let's say, living like in the middle of the field and they come into the house, or they underneath the ground straight down? Where exactly is it? A combination of both?
It's kind of like a neighborhood thing, you know. Like
Okay.
you have on the ground, so they're in there, and if you have a neighborhood that has a lot of termites, they will come into the house and then they'll go back to the ground. You know, it doesn't mean that. So you got areas, you know, and if you have a lot of moisture in the soil, they need a lot of moisture. You know, that's one of the key things for them. It's to eat off your house, which is dry wood, right? Like you get that dry wood, and then they have to drink, so they need that moisture, and then they come back to the house and eat.
So what happens with termites, from what you're saying, basically is they need a moist environment.
Right.
It attracts them to the house. So now they come in hungry. And is there like, you know, I mean, they come in
and they never sleep.
You know, and there should be like a cartoon for us as adults to kind of look and understand it. Like when you're a kid, you know, you learn from cartoons, these little things happening, and then I know it's bad. But as adults, we don't really learn about this stuff, right?
But it's funny how it ties into the basement systems because they can keep the basement dry.
So
That might help your situation with.
You know, we'll
termites.
talk about like how to treat for them. But one of the treatments that I recommend, especially if you don't have them yet, you can just keep the moisture levels low. And if you keep the moisture levels low, you have a better chance of not having wood strain insects, not just Termites, carpet ants, carpet bees, like those will help.
And,
if you keep the moisture.
Are there other type of wood destroying insects?
Yes, there's a few of them. There's carpet ants, carpet bees. They all cause a lot of damage to the house. Powder post beetles.
Oh, wow.
They can cause a lot of damage too.
Maybe we can get our guys to put a picture of what termites look like for you guys in the show. Maybe some powder post beetles and bugs.
Yeah.
This way they can promote and show people what they look like. Maybe it'll be like an exaggeration. Because how small are these termites? Are they something you can see with your naked eye? Is it?
Yes, you can see them. And the cool thing, if you see a termite that's eating your house, it's gonna die. It's not gonna
Really?
survive. Termites are like the creamy color. They almost look like maggots, right?
Oh wow!
And when everybody's seen maggots in the garbage
I
cans, and
don't
stuff,
know.
they're like that clear the clear color.
Excuse me.
They don't have protein, so you can't eat them.
Next
But
conversation, please.
But
Sorry.
they can't see the light. If they see the light, they die.
Yeah, they're sensitive to
So
light,
they're
right?
Very
Yeah.
sensitive, and when they eat, they eat inside the wood. That's why you need a professional inspector to find them, because sometimes I have a perfect piece of wood here, and I'll show it to the camera right there. It looks beautiful,
And this one?
right? And this one right there looks beautiful, and then I'll flip it around, and that's what termite damage looks like. And this kind of stuff you'll find with knowledge how to look for them. A professional termite guy will go in there with a big poker, and as soon as they hit the wood, sometimes just by the sound, you can actually tell that the wood is pretty damaged inside. It's hollow inside, and that's how we find termites. We get a big poker. That's the only tool we need to poke around and find them.
Eric and I have been on hundreds of home inspections with your team, and I definitely know what that sound like happens because you're bang, bang, bang.
But it's sound
You're
and but it's feel too,
It's
right?
like
It's a
pop,
feel.
Because when
it's
it
a
lands on the
visual-
wood,
yes. Yeah.
if it feels
like
hollow,
yeah.
you can tell.
So, just a lot of times by the sound you can tell.
Mhm.
Sometimes you lose the poker going through the wood, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, like that
Right.
was a little too much,
Right.
So you don't want to see that much damage done to a house, because then the structure is going to start getting problems. You start getting wavy floors and all that.
Do termites eat all wood?
They do. Like they eat all dead wood. Like they love to eat off the house. Sometimes if you lean wood against the house, they love to eat that wood. They'll feed off of that.
So when you have firewood against the house, it's a very big no-no because it brings the termites to your house. It's actually
So anything against the house is a big no-no, because we just mentioned before that they don't like to see the light, and if you cover the little bit of foundation they have shown, it's a perfect channel for them to get to the house. So that's why we always, as home inspectors, we always say, keep everything away from the house. Let the foundation be seen at least 6 to 8 inches. That would be ideal.
I definitely will say that Eric and I've definitely heard you guys say, listen, you're definitely good to keep the trees, the shrubs away from the house.
It's-
Eliminates bringing bugs to the house.
Yeah, it just creates a bridge for them to get into the house.
And it's things that as a homeowner, most people like to put plantings near their house because it's a pretty thing. They kind of create a fence, but it actually is a deterrent. The opposite, it's not a deterrent, it's the opposite of a deterrent. It brings them into the house. Very interesting stuff.
And if you guys could prep this for the show also, the mud tubes,
Mud tubes.
that's how they travel.
Yes. So the mud tubes are tunnels. They're
Yeah.
big tunnels, and if you go to your basement, right after you watch this, you go to the basement and you see these lines of dirt going through your foundation. Those are mud tubes. If you see a mud tube, you have termites.
Tell them what the mud tubes are made of.
Dirt.
Oh, it's dirt?
Yeah, and
Oh, I thought
and
it was
sawdust.
their feces that they
And
used. to-
sawdust. But however, they eat it, and they
Yeah.
comes back, and
Kids, I'm trying to get
and
Dave to
it's
gag
perfect.
again.
It's perfect mud to build it up.
bother him as much.
Do you know, it's funny you mentioned the mud tube. So I've definitely seen mud tubes before, or in a house before. I've gone through a house and I'm looking in a basement and I look up and I see the mud tube, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, they probably have termites. I don't want to say it yet, but I'm like, it might be termites, but it might not be. We need to have it checked out, right?
Well, if you have a mud tube, you most likely have termites.
The interesting about mud tubes is when I've seen mud tubes in cement, and that to me was a shocker. I believe I was out there
On
with
the cement.
Joe, Joe or
That's what you'll
Sean.
see.
and in the cement wall there was mud tubes, and they walk over there, and I'm like, no, it can't be possible. It's cement. And they're like, no, you have termites. I mean, I told the client that there's termites here because of the mud tubes, which is very interesting.
I've actually gone to houses where you could tell that the mud tubes were there, and then either the seller or somebody came by and tried to wipe them.
So
and you
if
can see
you
a smear on there.
if you found them and you have a house treated for termites, then they'll knock them down to make sure that they don't come
Right.
back, right? So the most amazing mud tube I ever seen, it was in the basement that was finished, and it came from the drywall of the ceiling all the way to the ground in
Oh
the
my
middle of the room, and it stood still, right? It's just amazing how they built that mud tube. It was awesome. Now, the mud tubes, if you see a mud tube in your basement and you go there and you knock it down, every termite that's at the house eating your house, it's going to die. It's not going to build a mud tube fast enough to go back into the ground to get the moisture,
Okay.
and they will die in there. I would, obviously, if you see that, I would highly recommend to get it treated, because that means that you have termites in there.
So in talking about termites with you guys, I mean, if you bought a house before and you had a termite inspection done to your house, did you do a termite inspection since you bought that house? And most often, 99 out of 100 people would say to you, I didn't do a termite inspection after I bought the house. So with that being said, and there's lots of questions I have over here, but when does somebody go and say, I bought my house, it's been 1, 2, 5, 8, 10 years. How often does someone go and do a termite inspection on their house again? What should be something that reminds them on the calendar? Like, what's the process? Like, what do you?
So that's a good question. I mean, if it was up to me, you would have it every year, so I would make a lot of money. But
Fair.
it's to be fair, is that you would go every other year or every 3 years at the most if the house has not been treated.
Right.
If the house has been
Good
treated, you
point.
can go up to 5 years and then have it done again. After the 5 years, if it's been treated within 5 years, then you can do every 3 years or
Are we
every other
talking
year.
about a treatment or an inspection on the property? Because
You do an inspection.
okay, so because if you had treatment done to your property, let's say today, you would say to me, you should automatically do treatment again in how many years, or do an inspection first?
So if it's your house and you're not going through a real estate transaction, like if you
You're
go,
not selling, you're just living there.
you live in there,
Proper maintenance.
you don't have to get the house treated again. You can just do inspections, keep doing inspections. And after 20 years goes by, if you're only doing inspections and you never have termites, it's still going to be cheaper than having the house treated.
That's
Makes
a good.
sense?
That's a good point.
Right?
That's a good point.
So you just want to make sure that they're not coming back.
Right.
And they could come back even if the house was treated. So it's one of those things that you wanted to be sure that they're not coming back.
So on a home, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to have a question about the treatment. I know it's the vernacular. It's called a treatment. Is it so like the baits that are put? Is it a bait? So does it draw the termites to it, or does it kill what's existing there?
So
That's a good question.
so there's. I'll talk about the treatment.
More than
So
one method, I guess.
There's more than one way to treat it. You can one of them is actually you can inject the wood, like you have pressure treated, right? Pressure treated is good for 20 years.
Pressure
So,
treat. Pressure treated.
Pressure treat the wood, right? Like when you go to
The wood
Home
itself.
Depot to buy
Gotcha.
wood for a deck, you want to pressure treat it, right? That's
Yeah.
a way to termites don't eat it when it's fresh, and then after it gets like 15, 20 years, they'll start eating it anyways if they're
Okay.
hungry, right?
All right.
So the one of the best treatments is the spray. So you go around the house. You have to have a closed circuit. So if you start at one point at one corner of the house, you go all the way around, and you have to finish at that point again. And then you go every 16 inches, and you drill a hole, and you spray the I don't like to use chemical, but it is a chemical, right?
So wait, hold
But
on a
it's
second.
environmental
I
friendly.
got a question. Hold on. You said spraying, you said drilling.
Yep.
You're drilling holes into the dirt, into the concrete,
Whatever you
into
have,
the
yeah.
wood, because
We want to be as close as possible to the
Foundation of the
structure,
house.
right?
Okay.
So if you have a patio or if you have stairs, concrete stairs coming down, you're gonna have to drill through them.
into the cement,
Yes.
drilling holes.
Yeah.
and then you're putting in there the liquid, the medicine, the
Yes.
poison,
That
if you will, that is going to attack
So-
any opportunity.
now you're making a barrier around the house that works. Right?
Okay.
It's not 100%, I would say, but it's at least 99%. Right?
Okay.
So when you have a bait, you're putting baits around the house, and you put them every 2 feet around the house, and it's an invitation, right? You're making it easier for them to eat off the baits than to eat off the house. So, hey, eat off this bait, leave my house alone. If they're stubborn, they could still go to the house. And now every year those baits have to be looked at. They have to look at the stick that they put in there. So you have to pay a company to come in.
Are
every
these the
year.
green things
Yeah.
we're talking
Yes.
about? Okay.
Yeah, so
Green
it's
or
like yay
black,
long, it's inserted,
Okay.
it's got a disc at the top that
Yeah.
you can tuck
Okay,
so
so-
you can see
yeah.
down into it.
So that's one type of
You
prevention.
need
or-
maintenance, right?
Yes, that's a lot cheaper. However, it needs maintenance. So
Yep.
you have to. Most companies will recommend you to do it every year, and I would recommend to do it every year because they put a little stick in there of the first year's food. The next year is going to be poison to get rid of them.
Oh, wow. So,
So-
you're bringing them to the house.
Yeah.
Eat the,
Well, you're bringing them to the bait to eat that bait
but the
instead
bait,
of the house.
does the bait kill them?
Not the first year. The second year they will.
Because it gets them into
Right.
a habit of
Yeah.
going to that location for the food.
That makes me nervous. Might bring the bad guys to the
It's,
house.
well, they're
So
usually
it's away
about,
from the house,
they're
right?
usually about 3 feet, 3 to
Yeah.
5 feet away from the house.
But it's a great treatment. There's companies that do it out there, and
What's
it's
the
a
other
lot more
alternative?
affordable.
Can I put electricity in the ground and then just zap them? I mean, like, what's another option?
He wants to
besides-
build a moat.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
well, the moat would actually
It's
draw them
moisture.
in with the moisture, right? So,
Moisture.
No, you nip them.
can you put medicine in the ground that
Yes.
kills them or
And
poisoning,
and I know,
like rat poisoning?
well, a lot of people are very concerned about when you say chemicals. I'm going to put chemicals around your house. You get very concerned about that word, right? Chemicals.
Well, if you have a well, that's,
No,
that could be going down in your
not really, because
water table, no?
today, what they're using today, it is environmental friendly, right?
Okay.
It's good. They can go right by the well. They had at one point that they actually had to dig out the dirt, put it in a wheelbarrow, and mix it with the product, and put it back. They don't have to do that anymore. They can get pretty close to the well. So
We're going with a little bit more punchy stuff than that. Bring them in to eat. I don't want to bring them in to
yes, so
eat. I want to bring them in to kill them. And
as far as an invitation, you only go if you want to, right?
Right.
So they could still go to the house.
Right.
As far as the chemical, it's a barrier. Do not cross this barrier. And
Right.
We were talking about the neighbor's house,
Right.
right?
I
So
wanted
like
to
you
come-
treat your house.
yeah, I want to come to my house. And, I'm not either gonna make it. I'll
Well,
allow
yeah,
it.
so talk about, so what you were talking about, in the pre-show, we were talking about if your neighbor is doing a termite treatment,
Yes.
it's probably because they've seen something,
Right.
right?
Nobody does. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of people do it because they're petrified of them. Oh my God!
Right,
termites, I don't
precautionary,
want to
right.
have them.
But
I'm
you-
just going to treat my house for it.
But you should be petrified of termites because they destroy things. They destroy structured buildings, houses, and they crumble them. I mean, they literally destroy things, which is why you should fear them, but at the same time understand what it is.
Mhm.
So kind of like,
But the important thing Marco was talking about is if your neighbor does a treatment,
yes,
they now need someplace to go.
right,
So they may hop on over to your house
right,
instead.
absolutely. So
And it happened to us in the, where our office is in Beacon Falls. So it's known to have termites around the area. And we have two buildings, one next to the other, and they both had termites at one point. We treated them both after we bought them. And my neighbor said, "Oh, I never seen termites here." I'm like, you will not. You will not. so
It's gonna cost you $1 million to fix
I
it.
kind of felt bad.
by the way, here's my card.
I offered him to inspect her every year, but he hasn't taken the offer yet. So it's been almost.
The wind's gonna
7
blow the
years,
house
so it's
over.
kinda
You get a strong wind, also the
So-
house is gonna go.
My favorite saying, and Melanie was laughing when you were saying that. My favorite saying is that termites can eat a foot of a 2x4 in 120 days, and
So
that
that's
could be a lot of damage.
That's
in no time.
actually something that I want to get back into this whole termite thing. It's a very serious problem. And it's a very serious issue that most of America, most people do not realize what is involved in the termite and how much danger and how much construction they can do to a house in a short period of time.
I got a question.
I just said
Two
America.
questions actually. So city-wise, so like New Haven, it's more populated, it's more concrete, stuff like that. Is it still really prominent?
Can
it happen there as much?
like, with me doing inspections all over, I started to know neighborhoods, right? Like, I used to have this joke with the new inspectors, that when they were very new at it, you have to, we have a rule that they have to do inspections for a year before they actually do termite inspections, because it's very easy to miss, right?
Yeah.
So, I had this joke that whenever I went to West Haven, which there's an area there that has a lot of moisture in the ground, and I would bet with them, bet you I can find termites in this house. And they were like, "Oh, how do you know?" Sure enough, it would be there. So you start knowing
The
neighborhoods.
local bar of termites.
Savvy Rob.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, yeah, exactly. So if you're treating your house, you're still gonna have evidence of a treatment, evidence of, if we see wood like this, we still have to call it out. There was evidence of termites. But if the house was treated, that's totally fine. It's okay. So we always see this, and so if you don't have this and treatment, you're gonna have termites in the house. Maybe life,
How many different kinds of termites are there? And I say that, I'm going to use, let's stay with Connecticut specifically,
Right.
maybe, because we're here. But
Well,
are there more?
There's not that many, so I can
Okay.
actually talk about the United States.
Okay.
There's 3 different types of termites. There's subterranean termites. Those are the popular ones in Connecticut.
Okay,
Subterranean.
Subterranean.
And then you have Formosan. Formosan, you could still have them in Connecticut.
So
It's
subterranean,
not-
we're going to see what those look like. Formosan.
Formosan termites are not known to be around Connecticut, but they're out there.
Okay.
They're
Formosan.
much bigger colonies. They do much more
Bigger
damage than the ones we deal with here. And then you have drywood termites.
Drywood is number 3. Formosan is number 2. And subterranean is number 1.
Right. So subterranean termites are actually the best ones out of the 3 of them.
The
If I
best
can say
ones
that.
to have.
There's no good termites,
I was
but
gonna
if
say.
I have to pick one, subterranean is
Least
it,
damaging, if you
Yeah.
will.
So if you have drywood termites, which we could still have in Connecticut, they're more in the attic space.
Ooh.
And if you move in here from states that are known to have it, such as California and Florida, and like from warmer states that have them, and they bring them because they can travel in a picture frame, they can travel in a piece of furniture,
That's crazy.
and you don't even know,
Ah.
right?
Or
So
it could
when you're
travel
moving,
in a
bring
big,
them.
big
Right.
truck.
Wood
They can travel
boxes.
anything
No.
that's made out of wood. So if
So you
you
can have
have them,
Floridian termites in Connecticut, and you can have
Yeah.
Connecticut termites or subterranean in Florida.
no, it's so,
Oh.
Ah.
You can't take the heat in
No,
Florida.
yeah, they can't take the heat. No. Well, actually, Florida has all types of termites. I
Mm-hmm.
always say I would never be able to be a home inspector in Florida because all the termites and snakes and crawl
Oh,
spaces.
forget about it.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. But now we have subterranean termites, right? And within those colonies, you have the workers.
Yep.
Those are the ones that come into the house and leave the house. We have the reproducers, right? Which those come out, and sometimes in the springtime and fall, you might see them. Like they're big swarms, they kind of look like carpenter bees, but they're not carpenter bees, ants, right? Carpenter ants. And the wings are round, a little bit more round than the carpenter ants are. And then we have the soldiers. The soldiers will
These are
protect the
all
workers.
These are all part of the termites.
All the termites
They all
that we
have jobs.
Yeah.
They all have jobs, and so the workers work all the time, and they don't sleep. They just keep going back and forth, bringing food to the colony, and it's a system that it works, and they do a lot of damage to the house.
I want to just jump for 1 second to my client's house that I'm selling. This house is where this whole thing kind of came to. And the termite damage, and these poor people, amazing people, hardworking people, take care of this house. It's a beautiful house. And they do this home inspection. The buyer does a home inspection to their house. The basement is riddled in termites. And termites, from what we understand, have gone straight through the house into the attic. Now, does that mean we have multiple colonies of termites that have entered into this house? Because, I mean, you've got
A colony of termites.
maybe the right word, I'm not using the right words, but
Right, I understand. So I always tell my inspectors, like, if you see termites in the attic, you're basically done.
really.
In Connecticut, if you see termites in the attic, your house is going to be in bad shape.
So this is a situation now where, again, something can be avoided for you guys as homeowners. It's a very sensitive, it's a very scary, it's a very serious situation. We're joking around a little bit here, but you guys need to understand how important to know what termites are and how to protect your home about termites, and why every year or every 2 years you really should be checking your home to see, do I have termites or not? Do a home inspection. For a couple $100, you save your home. It's unbelievable. So,
Very important question.
yes.
If you have a home where the basement is completely finished, you don't have the exposed sill and stuff that we need to see, what's another method of an inspection?
So
Good question.
we can't see through walls no better than you can, no better than anybody else out there can. If you have that superpowers, I'll go higher in a heartbeat. There's a lot of things that we look for, like especially around the trim at the bottom. If you see any dirt, if you see the paint bubbling in the basement,
Paint building in the basement.
if
Interesting.
it's bubbling, termites are eating the paint underneath, and it's bubbling because they can't see the light, so they're not coming through.
Huh.
And that's why you're gonna see it.
I've
Just
definitely
bubble.
seen that before myself.
Sometimes
So,
the hardwood floor.
I thought it was just maybe water that got behind the paint or something. like that.
Hardwood floors sometimes. I seen on hardwood floors, they just cause a lot of damage through those.
Come up to
So
the
there's no
first floor.
exterior check that you can do then?
We always do an exterior check. You do the decks, you do the outside, whatever we can see in the foundation.
Mhm.
If you see the mud tube that we were talking about earlier, going up the foundation, if you have a finished basement, and you see a mud tube, you need to be very nervous. You know, like you get the house treated right away. And it's just like a little line of dirt.
Eric was saying though that he had brick up to his siding, so like what would you do
So-
in that situation?
So
That's
one
what I
of
think
one of
that-
the
Good question.
craziest thing that we get all the time is kind of like, I'm buying a brick house, I don't need a termite inspection. That's where I seen the most damage of termite was in a
Yeah,
brick
okay.
house.
It's very interesting because a lot of people say I want to buy a stone house or brick house, and having no knowledge that would be
Well,
Most
it's
of the
still wood on the
times-
inside.
Well,
Right.
most of the times the brick is just the face of it. It's kind of like your siding. It's not really the structure of the house. And even if it is, you're gonna have wood structure inside, and for the termites to go through the brick, it's so easy for them. You know, they'll find a channel to go through. It's just like a concrete foundation crack. When you have a concrete foundation, you have a crack. That's a perfect channel for them to get to the house. They will go through that because they only have to build a mud tube on two sides, so they can do a lot faster. You know.
one more thing on termites, and then I want to jump quickly to the next subject. We've been talking about termites for a while, but it's such an in-depth conversation. I'm hoping every one of you guys are really listening, paying attention, and please share this with people you know who own homes. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your grandparents, maybe your friends, family. This is something that's very educational to all of you out there listening. That's really going to help someone in saving their home and really saving them a lot of money. Most of the time, I found that your guys find, they'll say the first place they find them is in the front stoop of the house, the first when you walk in the house, and that entranceway of the house is almost always the first place they find termites. Why is that?
So we have specific places that we look a little more careful, right? So if you have concrete steps going up to the front of the house, right? Those steps were done after the house was built. So you have the foundation and you have the concrete steps against it. So there's a little gap in between. So that gap makes it easier for them to build a mud tube.
It's
So
dark.
yeah, exactly. So it's dark. They build a mud tube just on two sides and they get in there a lot faster.
Unbelievable.
So that's one of the high spots that you would find termites. If you have two garage doors, between the garage doors, that's another spot that you usually find it. Or
Absolutely.
even on the corner of the garage doors, that's a
Sure.
big spot right there. You know?
For sure, yeah, I know. So with the front stoop, I know, I think I think one of your inspectors may have educated me on it, that is like the flashing wasn't done right. And right behind the flashing is wood,
Right.
right? So, and I know one of the things that when we're going to see a house, one of the things I know I do, Dave, I think, does it as well. We'll move that welcome mat.
Hmm.
Because under that welcome mat, and sometimes you'll see the drill
Yeah.
holes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you may not have any evidence that there was ever a treatment done to that house, and you see those drill holes,
England.
sets off
And when
an
it's all- but- and it's-
alarm for me.
But it's also a good thing to know that there was treatment done because I mean some line of defense at some point was put there.
Right, but why did they do it?
Right.
You know,
So-
so right.
So, I mean, we deal with a lot with real estate, so it's a little bit more, it's a little bit different because we have to, we get an FHA or a VA loan that needs the termite done. So if the house has not been treated within 5 years, now it has to be treated again. And now, so we need to know that ahead of time. So by you guys doing that and knowing that, that's where you have to look for it. As part of our inspection is look to see if it was treated or not.
Now we talked a lot about termites. I want to quickly get you on another subject, and we won't be able to go as in depth because the show's getting long. We may have to do a part 2 on this one here. But this is an important conversation about radon. Do you all know what radon is? And let's talk about what is radon.
So radon is an odorless, colorless, tasteless gas that comes from the soil, and it's everywhere in the atmosphere. And it becomes a problem when it's trapped inside the house, and then that's when we need to worry about it.
So all around us right now in our space we're in, there's actually radon gas in the air.
Yeah.
But the level of radon is based on an environment that is closed, that is kind of closed off, that isn't having air flow to it.
Yeah,
right?
it's more diluted in the atmosphere.
So
Don't have to worry about it as much.
let's talk about radon. Where do you find radon? Like obviously it's in the environment around us, but if you're a homeowner, where would be the place that someone's going to go and test for radon?
So we always test in the lowest possible livable level, and that gets confusing because some people think it's the lowest level or the lowest, so they say, well, I don't spend time there, or I don't want to do it there. It's not about, maybe you don't like to use your basement, but if it's possible to be livable, somebody might have a workshop or like a gym down there.
Not to mention, even if they're not using it, if the radon level is high in the basement, it's going to come up through the floors into the home.
Yeah, and
I
then the
mean,
ductwork too.
Right,
as
to the
well.
ductwork, it's gonna find its way. So it's important for you, America, buyers, homeowners. You've lived in a house for how many years? You may have tested for radon before in your home. When was the last time you tested for radon? And what we know about radon is it's under the ground. It's continued to move around the atmosphere underneath us, right? So the radon levels are changing time over time. Is that right?
It depends on, sometimes we have a good example, like by Market 32 in Oxford, they did a lot of blasting. And we tested some of the homes there and, before, and they were fine or low or like under action level. And then now they're like, higher. So, and that just goes to show like, depending on, some people think like if there's more ledge or, different parts of the country in, like in Nevada, they say that they didn't allow them to put it like there's higher levels, but they didn't allow them to put it because of political reasons that it's higher. So we look at these radon maps, they're not like they were done like in the 80s and they're not very accurate. So it goes house to house and neighborhood to neighborhood.
So if your neighbor has radon, it's a very good chance that you might have radon, but not necessarily.
I would say probably not. I mean, it's a good to test it if you see that your neighbor has it, but then we've tested houses right next to each other.
It's actually
Once
more
in a
accurate
while-
to
it's
say
so weird, yeah.
with termites than you
Yeah.
would do with the radon.
It's
If your
very
neighbor has
interesting.
termites, you could have, most likely you have them,
Like
or
radon?
you could have them, but radon is not safe to say that.
Yeah, but so can we just go back to like why is radon like why do we care, right?
I mean,
Because it's a second.
so I apologize.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you a quick
no,
one.
it's exciting.
So why is radon so important to test
Well,
for?
January is National Radon Action Month.
Yes.
Like it's awareness, right?
And it's funny because I
Yeah.
just did a trivia question on the air to America, everybody who watches social media, and said, "This is radon month because I know this from you guys. And what is the maximum level of radon you can have in a home before an action level of putting mitigation system in the house? So what's the maximum level?
So it's 4 picocuries per liter
That's-
in
Pico Curies.
Pico Curries.
Abbreviated,
Curries.
it's PCL.
PCCL.
The I.
Okay.
PCIL.
Yeah, and what were you saying before? It was funny about
There's
about
lots of
rain.
things that
I
are
don't know.
funny.
There's a lot of things we're saying.
So until he thinks about it, so
Yeah.
going back to the radon, right? So a maximum of 4, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to put a mitigation system maybe beforehand. But on a home inspection, or someone that does a home inspection buying a house, if it's at 4.0 or higher, we are going to ask for a mitigation system put inside.
Right, and so that's just the number that the EPA came up with because there's so many different.
For real estate.
Yeah, and it's in a real estate transaction. So if you're a homeowner and you already own a home, whenever, if it is around that action level, we're gonna try to get it as low as you can, but usually around
Two
2.
questions.
Yeah.
One, where does radon gas come from?
Comes from the soil.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
not a particular stone or anything in the soil?
It's uranium.
Uranium?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
and then it starts to break up into different as it comes up, and then so we're not concerned about like the actual rate. It's more the decay in the air. So it's
Mhm.
like little particles, and that's what this machine does when we use a.
So let's talk about this. This is what they call a.
Hold on a second, because I said two
Yes,
questions.
Oh,
sorry,
sure. I'm
Did-
sorry. Yeah.
I apologize.
You didn't hear the two questions. right?
Eric, I apologize.
So
Yes.
on the newer houses,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the newer houses, they're building the passive
Mhm.
systems.
Yep.
Okay. Would you
It's
recommend
totally-
that they still do a radon test?
100%.
100%? Okay.
Yes. But I would wait until they get the CO, the clear, like the certificate of occupancy, because we get a lot of calls. I would, a lot of times people think because it's a new home, they don't have to test, and then a lot of times they call us and they don't have, like, we'll go into the basement and there might still be a cutout with some gravel or like a open hole. If they have the certificate of occupancy, everything is the way that they're going to live there. And that's when we would test for it.
And the reason that we highly recommend testing a brand new house. The code today is to put a passive system. So a passive system is just a pipe that goes from your basement inside the walls. You're not going to see it on the outside, and it's going to go past your roof line. And
I didn't know that.
by code, you have a plug in the attic, right? All set up in case you need a fan.
Mhm.
And
Smart.
today they're making these houses way more efficient than before, right? Like these houses have to meet a certain level of drafting and all that. So they make these houses really efficient, and it kind of traps the radon even more.
Interesting.
So that's why the system is supposed to be there. But if you need a fan, then all you have to do is cut the pipe, put the fan in there, plug it in. The plug's already going to be there and everything.
And it's more aesthetically
it's-
pleasing
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
With the
it's-
new
it'll be
construction.
a lot ready to go. Ready?
Yeah.
That's a very good point. There's a lot of going back to radon. Well, first let's go back to this machine.
Okay.
I interrupted you and I apologize. Eric had a great second question.
I
I'm
did
sorry
have another
about that.
question spin off from that though.
Yes.
This is what I was thinking about as we
Mhm.
were doing the pre-meeting. What's the blue liquid in that indicator?
Well, that's a great question.
That would be a
People always
question for
ask that.
Marco.
Is it? Okay.
So what's the magic
It's the,
liquid?
the liquid that gives us the indicator on what the level is in the house.
So the
Can you do
liquid,
shots with that? Like,
don't drink it.
It's blue curacao.
Curacao.
Yeah.
Don't drink it. The liquid could be anything. You can actually put water in there and it would work the same.
okay.
It just tinted, so you can see the level.
I've seen it. I've seen it that it's red, or I've seen it that
There,
it's pink.
there is a little loop that goes up, and there's a little pipe that goes into the bigger pipe, and that all it tells you is how is the fan performing,
Mm.
or is the fan on?
Right.
That's not telling you what the level. And I would talk to these companies that did this, came up with this gauge to say, change the numbers, because a lot of people will confuse
Very
that.
confusing.
Oh, no, this says 2, so that's the radon level. That has nothing to do with the levels. That just tells you the fan is on or off, and if the fan is pulling too hard or not hard enough. That's what it comes down to.
So radon mitigation systems are going to protect your home from air quality to make the level under 4.0, make it a healthy environment for a home. You definitely want to make sure to inspect your home for radon. Do it every couple of years. You definitely want to listen. Your home is your compound. It's your home base. You want to make sure that your home is safe for breathing, for safety of the home, the structure of the home. It's very important to be on top of maintenance when it comes to your house as a homeowner. And we also,
You were gonna go into how this works.
we're going to go into this, and we're going to kind of think a little faster,
Yeah,
kind of running out of
yeah.
time. We're going to apologize, everybody, but this machine here is for what? Testing radon in a house.
Yeah, we leave this machine in for at least 48 hours, and it checks the level of radon. It collects data, and it takes hourly readings, and then it averages it over the 48 hours or longer, at least 48 hours. There's different kinds of testing devices. This is the kind we use, a continuous monitor. Yeah, but
We're going to have to come back and do
Yeah.
some part 2 to this show here. And I apologize if it's getting so long. We got so many questions of people here and a lot of information to learn about. And there's such an amazing group of people. The Miranda Team Home Inspectors. You have Melanie and Marco here. Make sure to reach out to them. You'll have their website available.
What's the number?
What's the phone number to reach out to you guys?
203-526-8183.
You know,
You can text.
You can text us, you
call,
can call us, just even with questions. We love that.
oh, that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
anybody
Who
can
will
reach out
answer?
to you.
Routine and
Pictures.
Bertine, Jay, Amanda, and sometimes I answer.
And is there some kind of a do you have a website, personal website you have for your team?
Yep,
or-
it's the Miranda team at pillartopost.com.
Beautiful. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. An amazing show with amazing people who are so knowledgeable. And if you have questions and more things you want to know about home inspections, do not hesitate to reach out to them. You can always reach out to us as well. We'll get in touch with them, but they're great direct in contact. We are at the end of the show where we give out a free tumbler every week. We're so excited to give another one away. A beautiful tumbler for you, for watching our show. And let's go to the spinning wheel with Jonathan and see who the next winner is. Every week we have a guest on and we get to enjoy the tumbler also. And we want to congratulate our winner here this week. Thank you so much for watching every week. We can't wait to get you a tumbler. Make sure to send us your contacts so we can get this tumbler out to you. Marco and Melanie, and of course, my
Don't
right
forget
hand,
Eric.
Eric Vasquez.
oh, now he remembers.
The man, a legendary realtor, as you know, to be in touch with as well. But thank you guys so much for joining us here today in the studio.
Thanks for
having
We
us.
appreciate everything you taught us about termites and radon, and we're gonna have to get you guys back to go in more depth and detail.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much, everyone, for joining
Thank you.
us. We love and appreciate you guys. I want to wish you a fantastic week. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.